Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the live stream. So this morning we are talking about conscription in the United Kingdom and what we know so far. Those of you guys who have been following this channel, this is something I've been keeping an eye on. I've been keeping tabs on what's happening. Right now, there's a lot of movement in Europe, in the United Kingdom. People are looking at the potential, you know what, it's not even a potential threat, is it? People are looking at the threat from the Far East in Russia, in Ukraine, with Russia in Ukraine, and people are starting to understand what I've been saying for over a year. This war can't be won without conscripts. So I'm going to talk today, guys, and I am going to focus. This is going to be UK centric. So we already know that this is starting in Germany. We already know that this is starting in Germany. We already know that the United Kingdom have flirted with the idea. We already know that there are other member states of the European Union, other NATO states who are also flirting with the idea of conscripts. So let's just have a quick recap of what's happened in the last week with regards to conscripts. Now, I'm just going to fly through this, guys, because we've done this in other live streams, but I just want to, just so everybody understands what we're talking about, okay? So Germany have reintroduced a new framework whereby on the 1st of, On the 1st of January, I was going to say this year, on the 1st of January next year, the 1st of January is all, I've just thought you can't use the 1st of January this year in any sentence. The 1st of January is always going to be next year. Anyway, sorry, guys. So the 1st of January next year, 2026, all 18-year-old men will be required to go for a mandatory medical screening and a mandatory questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, what they're going to do is, in Germany, they're going to say, right, do you wish to serve in the German armed forces? Yes or no? I think that's the main thing there. And if they click no, or tick no, I don't know whether it's paper or online. But if the Germans don't get the required numbers that they need, they're gonna have mandatory military service, i.e., conscription. So that's what's happening in Germany now. They've not said. I can't find anywhere now. What the Germans are saying is the Germans are saying that they want to be able to meet the NATO commitment. I can't anywhere, guys. Nowhere can I find what that NATO commitment is. So what I'm saying to you guys now, regardless of the amount of people who click yes or tick yes, I want to join the German military, they are going to still implement that mandatory military service. And this is the way it's done. Around the world, nobody wants to make that big move, because if you make that big move, you get a big response. So what happens is they say, oh, yes, it's just the medical questionnaire. It's just this. It's just this. Oh, it's just that. Don't worry. It's just a little thing. We're not doing, and it inches you closer and closer and closer until you're on the front line and you're being told, yeah, you're not actually going out there as a war fighter. You're just going out there as a peacekeeper. And then you're stood there like that and you're thinking, hang on a minute. Right. And then the next thing you're like, right, fight or die. And you're like, oh, that's literally where we're going with the Germans. Right. So that's what's happening in Germany. Also, what we spoke about last night, more people now are coming out and saying this was, and again, guys, I did like an hour, or I think I did an hour and a half last night. And if you've not watched that video, go watch it last night. Last night we were talking about how the future of war and the West is not ready for a coming conflict with Russia. No matter what the training are doing, and and the Ukrainians are saying that NATO are not training for the real threat. So that's what we know as a, that's what we know. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, hang on. Oh, I think we're swizzling here. Hang on, guys. My browser. Guys, am I still streaming? Guys, did I freeze? Right, let me put the chat on. Sorry, guys. Right, guys, what's my stream like? Am I okay? Because, like, my screen just froze. Right, okay. Thank you, Nikki. Right, so that's what we know is happening in Europe right now, guys, okay? And I'm sorry I went through that. I know I've done that before, but I just wanted people to, I just wanted people to understand what's happening in Europe right now, because now I did a quick search this morning. And I'm just going to throw through these. I'm just going to throw through these headlines right now, and then we'll come back onto them in a minute. So this is a headline from. So we're talking about conscription in the United Kingdom now. It's definitely coming, guys. 100%, it's coming now. Whether they frame that as mandatory military service, whether they frame that as however they frame that, it's coming. It might not be called conscription. In fact, you know what? I don't think it will be called conscription, but you will be pressured, you will be forced into joining the military, and they need to do a mass military recruitment. Mass military recruitment. Have you guys seen the new Royal Marines advert? Oh, I can have my coffee now because I'm not. I'm only double streaming. Oh, have you guys seen the new Royal Marines advert? And look, guys, I love Royal Marines adverts. I do. I love the Royal Marines advert. They're not very tactically aware, but I do love the Royal Marines adverts. Where was all the diversity in the Royal Marines adverts? Where was the where was the stopping mid-patrol, turning your radio off so Mohammed can pray? Where was that? Like, honestly, where was that? Like, I didn't see any of that. I'm outraged. I'm outraged that in the middle of a patrol, Mohammed can't stop and pray. Can you imagine? You're out there, right? You're out in Eastern Europe fighting the Russians, and Mohammed's like, I don't know. Mohammed's like, Sergeant. He's like, what, Mohammed? He's like, prayer time. And he's like, yeah, we're in the middle of an attack, mate. And he's like, this is against my religious rights. How dare you? And then the next thing, the platoon sergeant's getting court-martialed, and like, there's a solicitor that, the guy, for every offense, there's a defense. That guy's taking him to court. Sorry. So exclusive. What UK conscription would really look like as Keir Starmer warns Brits must prepare. Now, this is an old article, but I thought I want to go through what's been said previously in the mainstream about conscription in the United Kingdom. I'll show you guys how, it's been set up. It's already been set up. It's just not our time to do this yet. So conscription is coming to the United Kingdom, guys. It's the only way that the West can fight the Russians and have a chance at winning. That's not to say that the West doesn't have a better military. That's to say it's a sheer numbers and manufacturing game. Remember, guys, this is an old article. This is from the Mirror, June 25th of June 2025. Exclusive UK conscription. What UK conscription would really look like? Sorry, guys. As Keir Starmer warns Britain must prepare. A newly published national security strategy has raised questions about bringing back conscription in the United Kingdom. And now an expert has warned this measure could be absolutely vital. And I've been telling you guys as well, this is necessary now. This is the only way that we can fight and potentially win the Russians. Again, guys, look, it's not about capacity. It's about numbers. Remember, we've said this many times, with our funding, with the way we fund our military and the way the Russians fund their military, they can field 50 infantry for every one of ours. That financially, that's the cost. And I want to do a deeper dive into that because I still think when you think about the transport costs as well from the United Kingdom, that means you have to transport them from the United Kingdom with security, with all the rest of it, all the way down to the front line, all the way through Ukraine. You have to feed, admin, logistics. Then you have to equip them, get them onto the front line. You have to provide them with food, water, ammunition, those anti-tank weapons, they're like I think the clue on the javelin, I think that's at least $250,000. Each missile, I would say, is 60-70 grand. So now you start to really pump up those prices, whereas the Russian conscripts, they're being pushed forward. How much do you think it costs to send a Russian from? It would be like the same cost analysis as sending someone from London to Cardiff. Literally get on a train, off you go. That's it, done. No fucking about. As an alarming government dossier warns that Brits must actively prepare for a war. Many have been left wondering what modern day combat would really mean for the United Kingdom. All this information's out there, ladies and gentlemen. All this information's out there. And the reason I started these channels, I'm gonna go back now. Take it back now, y'all. The reason I started these channels is because back in 2022. In fact, I need to sorry, I just remembered I need to text Neil. Give me a second. Let me just text Neil. You know, I'm not going to text Neil because I've not texted him for a while. I'll need to. Right, sorry. Somebody remind me at the end of this live stream that I need to text Neil. So, what I'm talking about here, guys, is when I started these channels back in 23 actually. Or was it 24? No, it was 23 at the end, back end of I can't remember. Back end of 23. One of the reasons I started these channels is because in 22, when the Russian invasion of when the big Russian invasion came into Ukraine, my mum turned up at the bottom of the gate, and we've got quite a long driveway. It's about maybe like, I don't know, 100 feet or something, and I get relatively long, depending where you live. And at the bottom of the gate, there's like the bottom of the driveway. There's a big wooden gate, quite high. There's barbed wire and, you know, rose bushes growing over the top of it. It'd be very difficult to get over without tools and a ladder, basically. Anyway, it's very difficult to get in. You can't just walk in. Anyway, so my mum phoned me up, and at that time I was dealing with loads of stuff. So I went down to the gate. I opened the gate up, and my mum was there. And I know I've said this quite a few times, but I know we've got some new members watching. And my mum was stood there. She was crying, and she said, "Sean, if Putin sends the nuclear missiles over, can I come and get in your cellar?" I'd laugh. I said, "What are you on about?" Anyway, she was stood there, and she had two Aldi bags. One of the Aldi bags was full of chunky soup, and the other one was full of that, you know, that UHT milk. Is it the long life milk, basically? The long life milk and tea bags. And she was in bits. She was absolutely terrified. So one of the reasons we started this channel is just to let everybody know what's happening, what's really happening. Because all the information that you need to know, you can't hide anything anymore. You literally cannot hide anything. So when we talk about war, when we talk about civil conflict, when we talk about everything, you know, all that information, especially with the military, I know with 100% certainty, like whatever's happening around the world, I can find an obscure article somewhere and I can share it and say, right, this is happening. I can find that. Just on a little side note, with the problems that we have in the United Kingdom with migration and, you know, uncontrolled migration into the United Kingdom, I used that same template saying, right, okay, I don't have the experience in migration. I don't have that experience on border force in the United Kingdom. But what I do have is that knowledge that when I'm talking about the military, guns, tanks, planes, trains, automobiles, tactics, strategy, 5.56 over 7.62 versus 4.45, 5.45. I understand how all this stuff works. So what I do is I apply that same logic to what's happening internally in the United Kingdom. Anyway, let's get, I just thought I need to throw that back out there because all this information's out there, and I bring to you guys, you know, like when I do a video on TikTok or on here or something, and I share an obscure article, and people say, "Oh, but Sean, that's just a little network," and I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's because it's true. Just because the main channels are not reporting on it doesn't mean it's any less true. Equally, we've all seen the BBC footage of like the panorama footage. Have you seen the video? Have you seen the rap video of Trump? AI is out of control. Sorry, guys, I'm digressing. I'm totally aware I'm going on a side quest. Let's get back on track, okay? So an alarming dossier is being released by the government warning Brits must actively prepare for war and left wondering what modern day combat would really look like. Now, back when this article was released, I told everybody, I said, look, guys, the modern combat is not what we're ready for now. If you guys were on the live stream last night, we spoke about what the reality of modern combat is like. and the use of conscripts is what the Russians are doing, and it's going to be very difficult to combat conscripts with modern NATO forces. It just doesn't work. It's kind of like having, like, imagine an MMA fight, all right? And imagine a mixed martial arts fight. And you've got, I don't know, John Jones, all right? You've got John Jones, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, John Jones, like prime John Jones. And he's in the ring, and he's got to fight 5 guys who are equally motivated to fight him and similar size. He ain't going to win. He's the greatest fighter of all time, but he ain't going to win. Now, if you guys have been on the channel and we've talked about the maths, it's not even that. It's like John Jones fighting 50 guys. It's just not going to work, guys. It's not going to work. Yes, I understand and I accept technology does leverage manpower, but, you know, only to a certain extent. I'm just continuing this article. An expert has revealed how conscription could work in the United Kingdom on home soil, explaining that a well-trained, resourceful UK land army of young and spirited Brits will deter Putin where nukes fear to tread. According to the newly published national security strategy, facing the danger of nuclear weapons will be more complex than it was even in the Cold War. A prospect that will no doubt send a shudder down the spine of those who live through those uncertain times. What I've said about nuclear weapons, you know, you want to talk about weapons of mass destruction. Like, what is a weapon of mass destruction? Like, what do we mean, a weapon of mass destruction? I could argue that the longbow is the biggest weapon of mass destruction. You know, the longbows had more confirmed kills than any other weapon system that's ever been, ever. Like, literally, the longbows had more kills. You don't call the longbow a weapon of mass destruction, although it has killed more people. For example, you know, equally, you don't call 7.62 and 5.45 and 5.56 and 7.62 long and short. You don't call them weapons of mass destruction. Although I would argue they have killed more people than nuclear weapons. In fact, you know what? I won't argue. I would say that is an absolute fact. Some of the dossier's references date back even further than the days of the Iron Curtain, harking back to the famed Blitz spirit of World War II. We're not going to have that, guys. We don't have that Blitz spirit anymore. We have been totally overrun with migrants. We don't have that Blitz spirit. And this is why in the back of my head, we were talking about this last night. And one of the things we were saying last night is these migrants are here for an, hang on, there's some pictures. These migrants are here for a reason. Now, I don't know what that reason is. I don't know what that reason is. What I do know is that we are heading towards a global conflict on an industrial scale. Very hard to say that that's not the case now. Germany gearing up to fight, with conscripts. You've got other Baltic nations increasing their military. Poland is becoming an absolute monster in Europe. Absolute monster in Europe. So you've got to understand, we are now, we're heading towards this global conflict on an industrial scale. And would it be too much of a far-fetch to say that the government will offer citizenship for service? It would make sense, right? It would make sense. It would make sense that the government are thinking, right, it's really bad. All these migrants coming into the United Kingdom, they're committing crime. We know they're committing crime. They're doing bad things to girls. We know they're doing bad things to girls. They're going stabby, rammy. It is 100% bad. But what's going to be worse is if we fall into Russian hands and we're under Russian occupation. That's going to be a lot worse. So maybe, I don't know, guys, maybe Starmer's doing a Slytherin. I don't know. Right, I'm going to share with you guys some pictures now. I'm going to share with you guys some pictures just because I've got them up. And then in fact, you know what? I'm not, guys. I'm going to jump onto the chat. Good morning, everyone on the chat. I'm sorry I've neglected you. I've just been monologuing for 20 minutes. Right, let me jump up and get some chat. Hang on, let me get, right. Oh, there's loads of people on the chat. Right, Googleino is saying NATO alarmed as Putin petrol missile apparently ready for use. I think, is that the long range one? Julie Aiken is saying, good morning all. Good morning to you, Julie. Anthony is saying, the youth of today, the youth will not go. It's a joke. Bye. See you later. Bye. Okay. Right. I would be counter to that. I think the youth of today are well up for a ruck. I think Gen Z are going to be absolute monsters, guys. You know, you've got to look at, and if you're 16 and under right now, you've got to look at how they are being brought up and the world that's shaping them around them. I mean, can you imagine now, young girls, 13, 12, 13, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, they're sat at the house, they're watching TV with their mums and dads, and they're saying, oh my God, and they're, and all this stuff, they're getting all this information thrown at them, and they're doing pattern recognition as young girls. Can you imagine that now, those young girls? So how are they going to grow up? What are they going to grow up into? You've got young boys who are watching the two-tier police system. What are they going to grow up into? So I totally disagree with that. I think Gen Z, they're going to be monsters, guys. They are going to be absolute monsters. Donna is saying NATO does not have a collective conscription commission. Sorry, I'm racing. Donna is saying NATO does not have a collective conscription commitment. Decisions on national military service policies, including conscription, are the sovereign responsibility of individual members. Yeah. So when we just spoke about that, then when the Germans, was it yesterday? I can't remember. Whenever, actually, I think it might have been Friday. Whenever it was. Couple of days ago, basically, the Germans have come out and they've said, right, on the 1st of January next year, remember, you cannot say the 1st of January this year in any sentence. It's today or yesterday, so you can't say it. Anyway, so the Germans came out and they said that they are implementing a mandatory questionnaire or a mandatory military medical or something where they have to sign a questionnaire. And what they're saying is, the Germans is, let me get this comment up here. Okay, so the Germans are saying if they don't reach the numbers for their NATO commitments, they're going to have to implement mandatory military service. But like Donna's saying here, you can't find those numbers. Those numbers don't exist. So it's very peculiar, isn't it, now, how you can see the government saying, yes, we need to meet our NATO commitments. What are those NATO commitments? We're not telling you. Why are you not telling us? Because there is none. Oh, so basically what the Germans are saying is, if we don't meet the non-existent quotas that we decide ourselves to give the NATO commitments that they've not told us, we're going to, you see the question marks here. It literally is the first step. It really is, Right, let me jump down. Mr. Bites, in fact, Googleino is saying, Sean, I'm banned from joining the military next year, but my medical record of mental health will stop me again. I don't know. Maybe it's not the right thing to do right now. Mr. Bites Explores says, I will kick a wall, break my foot. And Nikki Bishop is saying, do you think anyone from the left or majority Muslims would accept conscription? Do you know what I think would happen, honestly? Like the way Islam is, like, let's just say there's an alien invasion, all right? Let's just say there's an alien invasion, all right? I think all the Muslims would say, this is Allah's will. This is Allah's will, so he can get rid of all the kafirs. And while all us, like, warriors are going out to fight the aliens, and we're literally like, right, we need all the manpower we can get, these guys will be praying 5 times a day, marrying their cousins, saying it's Allah's will, and if we go out there and we defeat them, and absolutely decimate our population stock, that would be Allah's will. And, they would say that, it was his will to get rid of everybody. That is literally like, that's what I think would happen. Templar Marty saying, I'm a full-time dad, so I won't be getting conscripted. I'll stay behind and protect the women and kids on our homeland. I don't know. Maybe, look, if you listen, guys, I'll be quite honest. If the law changes, and I've seen this in Ukraine, if the law changes and says you will go out to the front line, you kind of will. That's the reality. Chris White is saying, you think we'd be building air raid shelters, etc. I guess this brings me back onto what I've said before. I don't think the real threat to the United Kingdom is going to come from ballistic missiles and drone attacks. I think the real threat to the United Kingdom is going to be an internal threat. It is going to be sabotage. It's going to be asymmetric warfare. It's going to be stabby, rammy. That's the real threat to the United Kingdom. So, that's where I think it is. Donna is saying, exactly, but we aren't. They are filling them in, and you have to jump through loops to even think about putting one on your property. Really? Donna, are you saying that you have to get like planning permission to build like a concrete hut on your house? Right, I'm going to jump down, guys. I'm going to jump down because there's loads of comments, and I don't think I'm going to be able to. In fact, I'm not going to be able to get them all. Donna Jenkins is saying, my adult son is not mentally fit to join up. He was massively disappointed, but I'm really not sure I wanted a weapon in his hand. He'd be fine disposing of the enemy. It's everyone else. Listen, guys, I've done a lot of training, all right? I've done a lot of training with lots of different people, and some of these people are wild. And I would take everybody. I think I could train anyone. I do. I think I could train anyone. Lil Miss is saying, Priv, wow, we haven't really been... Oh, hang on. Hang on, guys. I need to get Priv Caro's comments. Right, what's Priv Caro's comment, guys? Oh, hang on. Right, guys, hang on. I need to get this comment. There we are. Okay, so Priv Caro is saying, I never listen to the radio, but my dad always have it playing in the background. Yesterday, I heard a had on the radio telling people to remember to build an emergency kit for 7 days. It's worrying. It absolutely is, guys. Look, I've got a lot of friends in Europe. I have a lot of European friends from all beautiful, diverse countries. And the further east you go, people are like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Sweden, Poland. If you go to those countries, they're in a totally different mindset. They understand what's coming and they understand what's to do. Here in the United Kingdom, we're kind of isolated from it, because to get to the United Kingdom with boots on the ground and conscripts, you would have to go through, you'd have to go through the whole of Europe and then get over the water, which I think is absolutely not happening. But I do think we're already saturated with boots on the ground in the United Kingdom, guys. I do. I think we're already saturated with these boots on the ground. So it's going to be a wild time. It's going to be a wild time to live through. When people talk about the Russians don't have the, when people say the Russians don't have the capacity to push through Europe, I get that. I get what people are saying. But let me ask you guys this. If you was... Let's just say you was evil. Let's just pretend you let's just go with this, guys. Okay, when people, I'm going to address when people say that the Russians don't have the military to push through Europe, they'll be overextended. I get that. I totally accept that. Conventionally speaking, I get that. They don't, and I agree. And this is what people in high levels of the government don't understand. That ain't going to be what they're going to do. So let's just say if you was evil, right? If you was a really bad person, and you had a gang of about 100 people, and your government said to you, do you know what? Say you had a gang of 1 million. Say you had a gang of 1 million, all right? And your government said to you, right, lads, push through Europe, pillage your way through Europe, take, steal, whatever you want, that's yours. Just keep pushing forwards. Can you imagine that as an opportunity? They're going to be able to steal cars, infrastructure, looting shops. That's stuff that people in Russia don't have. And this is going to be that's going to be the warfare. It's not going to be the warfare of, these tactical Spetsnaz guys running around, but it's going to be land pirates pillaging their way through Europe. Honestly, guys, don't think that this is not already happening. If you guys, let me try and find this picture. This picture here really astonished me. Let me try and find it. This is not the picture. This is not the picture I was. This is not the picture I was looking for, but it'll do. It's the same picture. It's similar. It's a very similar picture, right? So, let me share this with you guys, okay? So this is an image from. Right, okay. So this is an image from Georgia. Right, okay. I'm just going to show you this anyway, guys. This is an image. They're saying this is an image from Georgia. Let me just share this with you guys. It's you'll understand why in a second. So this image here, this is an image from Georgia. I'm told this is an image from Georgia in 2008. I've seen similar images from Ukraine, where the Russian tanks here with these poorly trained conscripts, they've gone into Ukraine and they're looting stuff. And the stuff that they're looting, it's really telling about the depravity. They're stealing a porcelain toilet. They're stealing toilets. So what does that say to you about the quality of their life back where they live? If they're stealing toilets. It says a lot. You guys can search for that video, that images yourself. There are other images from 2022 where the Russians went into Ukraine and they were looting stuff. So this is what I'm saying, guys, all right? If these people are looting toilet seats, what do you think the opportunity for those people is going to be when they say, right, we're not going to pay you, but you go into Europe, whatever you take, you can keep. They're going to be thinking like all these electronic stores and new trainers and all TVs and all that stuff that we have as a capitalist world. That's what they're going to be looting. And that's going to be the pay. And they're going to want to do it more and more and more and more. They're going to want to go in houses and hotels and set fire to them. That's the mentality. And in that context, 100%, because you don't need that logistical support. Do you know why you don't need that logistical support? You don't need to provide them with their ration packs that cost 50 quid a pop. Do you know why? Because they're eating in McDonald's. They're eating in KFC. They're taking their own trolley and doing a 24-hour dash in in the supermarket. And people don't understand that this is the new level of warfare. This is what's coming, land piracy. But if you live in Eastern Europe, you absolutely understand what's coming. Right, so I think people are talking about air raid shelters on the chat. I'm just going to throw this up here, guys. We had an old World War II bunker in our garden, but after lots and lots and lots of research into this, I found out that in the 60s, it was taken down and the concrete was used to underpin the house. So it's gone. Googlino is saying illegal migration is tearing our country apart. The system is broken, says Shabina Mahmood. Yeah, talk is cheap, guys. Okay, talk is cheap. We want action. you know, and we've got to understand, guys, okay, that conscription is right. Sorry, guys, I'm going off on a side side quest. Let's get back to this. Let's get back to the crux of this live stream, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so World War III, conscription in the United Kingdom. What do we know so far, and how will it affect you? Before I do this, guys, make sure, if you've not done so, can you like, comment, subscribe, share my stuff? That really helps me out, guys. It really does help me out. So we just spoke then about how government. Oh, I said I was going to show some pictures, didn't I? You know, I'm not going to show those pictures because I'm just conscious of the time. Hang on. So we just, you know, we just spoke then about, you know, what conscription would really look like, as Keir Starmer is warning Brits must prepare. Now, that was an old article from June. I'm going to jump now to an article that was published on the 14th of November. So like yesterday or the day before. Britain should build up a volunteer force instead of reintroducing conscription. You see how they're bringing this in slowly so people understand it? Now, whether this is a volunteer force or a voluntold force doesn't really matter. We need more men. That is the reality, guys, because it doesn't matter how many tanks and missiles you've got if you're not if you're fighting a conscript army that are just pillaging their way through Europe with no real mutual support. Guys, can you see the new dynamic now of warfare? Fears of the reintroduction of conscription in Britain are mounting after Volodymyr Zelensky warned against Russian plans to unleash another big war on Europe in 2029 or 2030. The UK government has previously ruled out mobilising civilians to boost armed forces, but Cabinet Minister Pat McFadden admitted that decisions may be needed in the future to respond to the new reality in the continent. Honestly, guys, like they're saying stuff now I've been talking about like at least a year ago. Paul O'Neill, the former head of the People Strategy for the Ministry of Defence. That's an interesting title. I'm going to have to Google what that means. Said conscription will not be introduced unless there is a long-term conflict. So you see how they're leaving themselves with a way out. Conscription will never be do you know what? And does it even matter? Like, guys, do you trust the government at the moment with what they say? Do you trust the government when they say we're not going to tax people? Do you trust the government when they say that? Like, do you trust the government that when they say like this, would you even trust them if they said the sky's blue and grass is green? So I want to jump back onto this first statement here, guys, okay? Fears of reintroduction of conscription in Britain are mounting after Zelensky warned against Russian plans to unleash another big war in Europe in 29 or 30. Think about this now, all right? You've got the Russians on one side. They are pushing, they're taking ground every day. They're building their military. They are strong. You can't deny it. They're strong. Militarily, they're strong. Are they going to wait? Do you think the Russians are going to wait until Europe is at full strength to fight them? Or do you think they're going to fight them now? The Russians understand that the Europeans have now shown their cards. The Europeans have shown everybody's shown their cards now. It's just like a big pretending game. I'm just going through some articles, guys, with regards to conscription. So this is an article now. What would happen if you refuse conscription? This is an article from the Express on the 18th of October this year. What will happen if you refuse conscription for World War III? They're not even trying to hide it anymore, guys. They're not even trying to hide it. They're bringing this out slowly. It's like trickle fed, it's trickle fed. If there was a big, if the public opinion was, no, we're never going to do, never. Yeah, we need 2 million men. There'd be a massive outcry. Can you imagine everybody on the boats going? So if again, I'm reading off the article, guys, okay? If World War III breaks out, there are ways to legally avoid being called up to fight for the UK, but you might be shamed publicly. I think there would be a lot of imams in mosques telling people to do this. People used to wave white feathers at men in the streets during World War I as a mark of shaming those who refused to stand up and fight for their country. It feels like, with global tensions heating up, that the risk of another global conflict is closer than it has been in some time. Look, guys, as far as I'm concerned, this is inevitable. All right, this is inevitable. And I've been telling you guys what's happening. And if you was on my live stream last night and we was talking about we was talking about how NATO are not ready. Literally, I was reading that off I think it was the Telegraph, or I don't know. Go and check the video out. I think it was the Telegraph. It might not have been. I was reading that what their top war correspondent, he's saying. Literally, listen to that video and then go and listen to videos I did a year ago. I've been saying the same thing as they're saying now. So they're catching up. So when I'm saying to you guys that we are heading towards a global conflict on an industrial scale, it feels like global tensions are heating up, with that the risk of another global conflict is closer than it has been in some time. And the prospect of mandatory military conscription, again, whatever they call it, doesn't really matter, especially for young men, could be a very real one. I wonder how many girls are going to want equal rights when this happens. I wonder how many girls are going to be wanting, I want equal rights, man. I should be ashamed. These conscientious objectors had refused to fight for the UK in the 1914 to 1918 conflict against Germany, often for morale reasons. And as a result, the White Feathers campaign was organised by women to publicly present men not in uniform with a white feather as a mark of cowardice. You see, we have Islam now in the United Kingdom, and I think in the mosques, I think in the mosques, they will be saying, like the imams will be saying, like, don't you worry, lads. This is Allah's will. Allah is will, and you are not cowards. You are just stay here and marry your cousin. The prospect of World War III is not something that anyone relishes, but as Vladimir Putin pushes into Ukraine, and more recently, Putin's puppets have continued to make not so veiled threats, such as suggesting the United Kingdom, the UK's university cities could be targeted. In the summer, ministers said the UK needs to be prepared for war in our homeland. Yeah, can you remember that, guys, as well? They said the United Kingdom needs to be prepared for a war on British soil. And that's going to be, with the people I believe are already here. It's just chaos at the moment. With a greater push to ready society for the outbreak of conflict, as well as other national emergencies like pandemics, extreme weather, and cyber attacks or infrastructure outages. We don't know exactly what conscription would look like today, but we do have some historic precedent as the global conflicts of World War I and II. So that's another article there, guys, just talking about, what would happen in the United Kingdom if conscription did kick in. Also, we've got this article. In fact, no, we haven't. That's the other. In fact, I had four. I had four to go through. We've done that one. This one. Sorry, I missed this one. And then we've got an article from Sky News. I'm just going over conscription again, guys, because I do think it's coming. And I'll Right, my screen has just froze. I don't even know if my internet's been really weird. My internet's been really weird at the moment, guys. I don't know if I'm freezing on you guys. I did have another article to go through. I can't open it for some reason, but the article says the UK. This is from Sky News. I can't see the date. I can't see the date. It's not letting me open the article. It says UK has no plans for conscription, but future decisions will respond to new threats. So we know it's coming. We know it's coming. Now, honestly, guys, I don't know what's happening right now. The two main directions of travel in the United Kingdom are: one, we're getting invaded by migrants, and these migrants are going to be spenders when we move on to universal basic income. That's one option. That is one option. And they're here to destroy Western civilization. That is absolutely one option. The other option is these migrants are coming here and they're going to be conscripted into an army and they're going to go and fight the Russians. Of those two, or it could be a little bit of both. It could be a little bit of both. It could be a little bit of both. But nobody in their right mind can say that what's happening in the United Kingdom is is normal. Right, let me close some browsers down, guys, because my computer's been slower than a bro, slow as a bro, and a lot of these are not functioning. Yes. Right. Lisa Jane is saying the benefit system is being scrutinized by the government at the moment. There are so many 18 to 30-year-olds on benefit. Do you think they will be made to sign up? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I think they'll be made to sign up. But not in the sense that, right, you sign up or you get nothing. It will be, would you want to join the military? No, why not? Join the military. They will make it very difficult. And let's not pretend that, guys, that a couple of cool adverts, with I don't know, what music would you have in the background? A couple of cool adverts showing a masculine military, not with people stopping a patrol to pray. Can you imagine? You guys know the advert I'm talking about, right? Where there's these guys on a patrol and they just stop in the middle of a patrol because Muhammad, I'm assuming his name's Muhammad, because Muhammad wants to go down and he's, wants to pray. Those adverts will be gone. That just wound me up. One of the guys did a stitch video of YouTube videos and he published that as a recruitment video himself. And I think in the background, he had System of a Down. That was a better video. And a guy did it himself on a laptop, just stitching bits together. I can remember it. I know his name. I'm not going to mention his name. He owes me 20 quid. So, yeah, there's going to be a big recruitment push. And they're going to get rid of all this wokey, dokey. Katrina Murdoch with an absolutely fantastic thumbnail. Is that, Katrina, is that a puppy Malinois? Is that a puppy Mal? Katrina, I don't know if you're still on, Katrina, but is that a puppy Mal? Katrina is saying, if Muslims stay in our country and take financial help, education and medical services, they should have to do conscription the same as our boys. Muhammad's family worshipped Baal, new research. Right, okay, so Baal, I don't know if you know this, guys. Baal he eats children. He's a very bad guy. He's a very bad demon. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm just reading the comment. Donna is saying, if the UK was brought into a conflict, we wouldn't know until you see bombs fall. Emergency text probably arrived 2 hours late. Prepare yourselves the best way possible. Don't follow the crowd. I agree, Donna. Well, brilliant, brilliant. And Lil Miz, with an equally fantastic thumbnail, is saying, Katrina, I totally agree. Katie Joyce is saying, what if you don't agree to conscription? Prison, surely that's better than war. I think a lot of people will be up for war, guys. I do. I think a lot of people will be up for war. I used to be a young man. I used to be a young man, and that I think this is part of why Western cultures declined. I do think this is part of why Western cultures declined, because Western culture is a culture of expansion. It's a culture of conflict. It's a culture of exploration. You know, right now, apart from Antarctica, we don't have any new worlds to discover. We don't have a new Wild West. We don't have a new frontier. There's nothing. There's nothing to explore. There's no new mountains to climb. There's no new resources to find. There's no new industry to start. That we need to. And because of that, Western culture is decaying. So to revive Western culture, we need to open up a new frontier. Now, I think Antarctica is going to be the next one. I do. I think there's going to be a mass exodus of Western culture to Antarctica. And then I think following that, there will be a mass, there needs to be a mass push into space. I do, guys. I think there needs to be a mass push into space. I feel that I was born 100 years too late or 100 years too early, because I feel that my place in the world is pushing boundaries and being out there at the forefront, like stepping where nobody's ever stepped before. What's beyond that mountain? What's beyond that ravine? What's over there? And then you push a team, you take an expeditionary force, and you push, you drive, and you succeed, and you find new stuff. You invent new stuff. That's what Western culture is. Tilly Gallardi is saying, do you really want those migrants to know the army secrets and weapons? So I don't know if you're just joining, Silly. What we're talking about here is the use of conscripts. Now, I said earlier about the use of conscripts and how the Russians are using conscripts, and they're not using them in a conventional sense. I would argue that the Russian conscripts don't have any idea or any training about Russian military. They're just given a rifle, and they said, right, off you go that way. Keep going east. Sorry, keep going west. Just whatever you do, take, steal, pillage, eat, do whatever you want, but keep pushing west. In that context, if you want to use that reverse training, yeah, mate, here's a rifle. There you go. Keep pushing east. But, we need to understand that conscripts and trained soldiers, you use them totally different. You use them totally different. There's head and shoulders different between these two military units. Yes, they're both men about 6 foot tall with a rifle and bullets and grenades. I get that, right? They are. The way they operate are totally different. It's like trying to compare an apple and an orange. Yes, they're both fruits. They grow on trees. They're similar sizes, but they're totally different. Googlino is calling it now. I bet 90% of benefit claimers are lefties. I don't know how you would. I don't know how you would get that, but I do know that we are. I think okay. When we're talking about benefits claimants, I was on the live stream a couple of days ago, and we was talking about. So the government came out and they said unemployment in the UK is up to like 5%. And then I was Googling this, and what I found is in the United Kingdom, I think it was like we have 5.6 million people claiming unemployment benefits. And I just did them. I was like, right, okay, we have 67 million people in the United Kingdom. 5.6 million is almost 10%. It is. It's almost 10% of that. So I was thinking like, okay, these numbers are definitely wrong. So I don't know where you'd get the liberals or left or right bias of people claiming benefits, but I do think the numbers are off. And those numbers don't include migrants, all right? So every migrant that's here in the United Kingdom is an asylum seeker and they're claiming some sort of financial assistance. That does not add on to the benefits, to the social benefits or whatever it is, to the social benefits numbers. It doesn't add up. That's a separate number. I don't know what those numbers are. Right, Donna was, hang on a minute, Donna was saying something there. What did Donna say? Claire Louise on X is saying hi. I'm saying hi back to you, Claire Louise Price, sorry. Right, I'm sure Donna was trying to put a question on. Have I missed it? Donna, your question may have been restricted. I think Donna's question's been restricted. I can't, oh, there it is. Donna is saying, Lil, there is nowhere safe. We don't have bunkers. They probably send them on a train without parents. All I can think of is post-war and they sent the kids away. Oh, it's Lisa's comments, right? Sean, when these wars begin, what will happen to the women and children? Okay, so I would say okay, so let's go macro. Let's go macro, but this will be a build-up. Macro, I would say the women would have to build shit, you know, work in powder factories, you know. Artillery is still king. It is, you know, artillery is still the king of war. It's always been the king of war. You know, people are talking about drones and stuff, and I don't see drones overtaking artillery. I think what's going to happen is initially when these battles happen, I'm talking about big scale battles now, not little special forces battles where some little guys abseil off helicopters and pew 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 in these little buildings, which is cool. It is, guys, it's cool. We're talking about industrialized now. You've got things like 105, 155 howitzers. These munitions are proven. They're proven. They're reliable. They're well understood. They're the things that are going to need. That's what's going to need to be produced at a ridiculous scale. So people will have to make that stuff. And the first battles, you know, the artillery is going to have a right tear up. You know, the artillery is going to NATO artillery will decimate the Russian forces, but they're only going to be decimating low quality Russian forces. So I would say women will be working. Society will continue. Most women will work in military industries. Most industries will be turned to military industries, and children will just go to school as normal, and women will be back, you know, running the house, I guess. I don't think we're going to see like in the Second World War. So in the second, I think what people are alluding to here is in the Second World War. If any of you guys have watched Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I love that movie, guys. I love the movie, the cartoon. You know the 1979. Is it 79? I think it's the 1979 Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie. I love that, guys. It's our Christmas movie. I love it. And Lord of the Rings, of course. Lord of the Rings is our Boxing Day movie. We'll watch that whole thing, Boxing Day. I'll not have anyone say a bad word about it. Where's it going? Yeah. In the Second World War, because of the Blitz and because of the threat on the South Coast, Dover, London, airstrikes, you know, the German Luftwaffe coming over. Those areas on the South Coast, they were not safe. So a lot of the children got sent to, I don't know what it was called. There was an op name for it. A lot of those children were sent into the countryside where they would be safe. And I think that was the right thing to do. I wouldn't feel so safe about sending my children away to the countryside now with what we have right now in the United Kingdom with, you know, child predators and such, because I feel they would be vulnerable there. But I don't think that will happen because I don't think we will have that threat from, we won't have that threat at a particular area. The threat, which will be an internal threat, that will be from, you know, asymmetric warfare. It will be from sabotage. It will be from stabby, rammy. And in that context, it doesn't really make any sense sending children away because they're not going to be any safer anywhere else than they are, because you don't know where these things are going to come. Donna is saying, Sean, do you think the past wars, do you like the past wars? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think, you know, factories, absolutely factories. You know, I've always said this is going to be a conflict. This is going to be an industrial conflict. Artillery is key, guys. Artillery is king. Artillery is always going to be king. We need to be able to produce more artillery rounds. You know, I'm not convinced with these little... I'm not convinced with these little quadcopter drones. I need to cut those out, don't I? I need to get some scissors. I'm not convinced with those little quadcopter drones that they've taken over. You know what? They've not taken over from artillery. Anybody who's seen artillery, look, guys, and when I give you this, like, when I talk about this, I've seen artillery going, you know, batteries of AS-90s or 105 howitzers or 155 howitzers. That shit is terrifying. That, you know, that is absolute. Artillery is absolutely terrifying. It's the king of war. And I've also seen these little drones go in. And yes, these little drones, they do go in. And they are accurate. But you can't get that mass. You can't get that mass of munitions thrown over the enemy. And this is going to be a war of industry. And, you know, artillery is going to be king. Gilly is saying, worrying times we are living in. It is worrying times we are living in. And Gilly, what a fantastic thumbnail you've got. Like an enchanted purple fairy. Gilly, the enchanted purple fairy. If you want, Google it. He said, if you want to kick people off benefits, I don't think they do. I think the government want more people on benefits. You've got to understand about macroeconomics. Money isn't real. You know, it's literally just numbers they print on a screen. So, of course, the government can keep printing more numbers on a screen. So, imagine this. Look, guys, and I'm just thinking out loud, okay? Imagine this. The government destroy industry. Does it sound like that's happening? You know, does it sound like it's happening that government are destroying industry, destroying business, making more people unemployed? Yeah. And then they say, well, I've got a way that you can be employed. I've got a way that you can be employed. You'll get 3 meals a day and you'll even get a roof over your head and you'll get paid. People will be like, it's better than what I've got now. Literally, that's where people will be going. And listen, guys, I just need to... Okay, so James is saying artillery is too expensive. Drones are cheap. Okay, so first of all, money isn't relevant. It's time. All right. So artillery. Well, it depends what artillery you're talking about. Actually, you know, yes, one artillery shell is a lot cheaper than one drone, but one drone. Yes, I understand it. I understand this. I understand this space, guys. Okay, I do understand this space. But when you're putting it into context of a global conflict, money's not relevant. Money doesn't matter. You just keep printing more and you deal with it afterwards. So it's production time. Production time is the real currency. Production time and resources. So, yes, drones are relatively cheaper, but the problem is, and what we're talking about, guys, what we need to talk about is these things here. Those ones, I don't know if you can see that. I printed this out and I said I was going to cut them out. So we've got different types of drones because when we talk about drones, we all talk about all these things are drones. Like, you know, but anyway, we're talking about this one here, the quadcopter drone, 20-kilometer range, you know, 5 kilo payload, you know. 5 kilo payload. So when you think about those statistics, okay, let's talk about those statistics. And yes, okay, some people may claim that their drone can go 50 kilometers. It can't, guys. Trust me, it can't. It doesn't work like that. Some people will claim their drone can carry 7 kilograms of payload. Yeah, whatever. All right, I get that. We're just going with a standard 20-kilometer range and 5 kilo payload. So average munition on an artillery shell, you know, a Grad missile, for example, is 4.5 kilos. Anyway, so you've got your 5 kilo payload, say, and you can take that 20 kilometers, all right, and you can put that in a relatively accurate, you know, location, assuming these things have not been taken down by a shotgun. That means that for one munition, and this is what people don't talk about. Everybody wants to talk about drones and they want to see these videos because you do get some great footage of drones. You get the FPV flying in and it is great. But you've got one operator now, you know, sat with the goggles on. You think average speed of one of those quadcopters is 60 kilometers an hour. So without stopping to do a reconnaissance check with their camera, without stopping for a map check, to get from point A to point B to strike point, that's 20 minutes constant flying in a straight line. And you're not going to fly in a straight line. You're going to be jinking and, you know, trying to avoid features. But let's just say it's 20 minutes, all right? 20 minutes at 60 kilometers an hour. Raven maths, guys, raven maths, right? So that means you've got one operator. It takes them 20 minutes to fly a sortie, and to maybe they hit, maybe they don't hit. If they don't hit, it takes another 20 minutes for that operator to send it. Or if you want to double up, that means you have to have 2 operators. Likewise, if you want to do a drone strike with 10 drones, you need 10 guys, and it's going to take them 20 minutes to get those, you know, to get that munitions on target. If you've got a crew of 3 and an artillery on an artillery gun, how much ammunition do you think that artillery barrel can put down in 20 minutes? Yeah, the whole place is flattened in 20 minutes. Like, the whole place is flattened, you know, not just a little surgical strike. So I'm standing by what I say, guys. Okay, artillery is king. Drones have their place, but they're not replacing artillery, not even remotely. James is saying, I could argue that if you out drones in mass production, imagine the volume of drones that can be produced relatively quick. Okay, so right. So James, okay, I get this mass production of drones. Where are those parts coming from? Where are those parts coming from? Where are those motors coming from? Where are those autopilots coming from? Where are the batteries coming from? You can't do it at that scale. You can't mass produce these quadcopters at that scale. It's not feasible. It's just really not feasible. Most of these parts come from China. China are at full capacity with their production. You know, you've got these. Do you know what? I might actually have one somewhere. So a lot of these drones will run off something. This is, I think this is an Arduino Uno. So can you see that? That's an Arduino Uno. Little microchip, little controller, Arduino Uno. Like, a lot of these drones will run off something like that. How easy do you think they are to produce? You know, it's not like stacking. It's not like stacking gunpowder into a, you know, into an into a steel shell. It's a lot more difficult to build drones than it is artillery. And even at scale, you know, producing those parts is difficult. You know, getting those little motors and the propellers, clicking all the wires in. All these things are difficult, guys, okay? All these things are difficult. Look, guys, I don't look, guys, the battlefield, you know, everybody, you know, people, and this is one of the problems with the government. Look, guys, this is one of the problems with the government at this point. Because of the media, because those drones, they have a little FPV camera and everybody can see the good videos when these drones hit. A lot of the time, they don't hit as well. You know, if there's a technical problem, they could get shot out the sky. Something could hit a propeller as they're moving through trees and they fall on their back. They're not as accurate, guys. All right, it's an absolute myth with these quadcopters. Liquid Avenue is saying UK has mosquito drones that look just like flies and can fly on your window and watch, listen, or even dispatch peoples. So any of these little drones that you've seen, guys, okay, any of these little drones that you've seen, the battery life on them is like terrible. So, you know, everybody's seen these, you know, these little, you know, it's not a thing, guys. It really isn't a thing. The battery life on these little tiny drones, they're not, you know, they're toys. You know, I'm talking about an industrial war, an industrial conflict, and I've seen this, guys. I've got a lot of experience, and you know. Hang on, what's this comment? Leroy Footlong is saying, no conspiracy theory, Jews have been kicked out of 109 countries over 1,000 times. BAE Systems made them. I don't know what that is. James is saying, it's not accuracy really that's cool. It's the fact you can send quantity, hundreds of thousands, and hit the target for a fraction of the cost. Okay, right, guys, you just can't. You can't send hundreds of thousands of drones for a fraction of the cost of artillery, okay? It just doesn't work like that. Okay, if you're talking about... okay, so the Russians are jamming. So the Russians are jamming these drones, okay? Russians are jamming drones, all right? So what the Ukrainians have got to do is they've got to use fiber optics. And you can't send thousands of well, you could send thousands of fiber optic drones, but you would have to have thousands of operators. You would literally have to have thousands of operators with FPV goggles on. It's just not it's just not logistically feasible. Sean, is anti-drone blinded to the potential by big artillery pieces? Is anti-drone blinded to the potential by big artillery pieces? I don't understand that question. Oh, Aligi, sorry, you're wrong. I've been in BAE Systems and had long conversations about these fly drones. That was 10 years ago. Okay, so anything that happens 10 years ago, guys, it's obsolete now. And any conversations that people had 10 years ago with BAE Systems, it's obsolete. It's absolutely obsolete. Silly is saying Sean doesn't believe in lasers, but we had good results with the new laser system against drones. Yeah, guys, I'm not convinced about these lasers, and I'll give you the maths. All right, I'll give you the maths with lasers. All right, I'll give you them. I'll give you the maths with the lasers. And okay, right. Let me caveat what I'm saying. So, silly. No, I don't believe that lasers are the weapon, but I do believe for potentially, like in Israel, for example, where you have a static location and you have the power, and you have the power to, and you have the power for those lasers. I do feel there's some limited capacity. But the problem with lasers is they need to be on, you know, they need to be on that target for like maybe 30 seconds or whatever to burn that out the sky. Now, the maximum range of any laser, I don't care what people say, the active range, you're not looking much more than 2 kilometers. And way before any of this information was released, I was talking about this. I was talking about, you know, light patterns and how light dissipates with the inverse square law. So it gets weaker as it gets further out. That's basically what it's saying. So you're not going to be able to take anything down beyond 2 kilometers. Now, that's absolutely fine if you're trying to take down something like, this is why I did it, guys. This is why I did it. Now, if you're trying to take down something like that, which is an RQ-4, that's a Global Hawk, that thing there, you can see how big that is. That's a drone, okay? So that's absolutely fine. You know, you can use a laser to take that down. Absolutely, 100%. That is what a laser, that's what lasers were designed for. Now, because that's going to be really expensive, right, to take that down. Now, if you're using your laser to take down something like that, or like that, then your laser becomes obsolete, because we've already agreed that the cost of these things are very low, and you can overwhelm those lasers. So I don't think I don't think lasers are, I don't think lasers are the way forward. I think like everything, guys, lasers are going to be right. What's going on in the chat? I don't know what this is. I don't know what that means, guys. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I don't know what. Shane is saying, you call them so-called UFOs. People keep saying, oh, they're terrifying. Shane, that is a Shane has got a listen, guys. Shane's got the most terrifying thumbnail I've seen. Oh, I think, okay, right. So-called UFOs, people keep saying they see where the drones or planes fully, though people think automatically they're UFOs, making it big news. 3i Atlas, by the way, is a comet just passing through Earth. Right, okay. I think what Shane is saying there is a lot of drones, people are saying that this is that they are UFOs. Well, I guess they are UFOs, aren't they? Unless you can identify that positively as a, I don't know, DJI Maverick or something, you know. Yes, banned again. Let's stop droning on. Hang on. Yeah. Let's stop droning on. I think you're right, actually. Let's stop droning on. Let's stop droning on. Right, guys, listen, the crux of this live stream, I've just looked at the time, and you guys are getting me droning on, all right? So the crux of this live stream has been World War III, conscription in the United Kingdom. What do we know so far, and how will it affect you? So we just went through then things that have been happening in Germany. So in Germany, on the 1st of January, they're implementing what I've been saying is the first, the first phase of conscription. Now, the Germans are saying on the 1st of January, 2026, every male in Germany is going to have to do a mandatory medical examination, I think, or something. But they're going to have to fill out a questionnaire, basically. And on that questionnaire, one of the questions is going to be: would you join the German military? Now, what they've also said, the Germans, is if they don't reach the numbers that they need, they are going to implement mandatory military service. The Germans have said that. They've also said that this has got to be in line with their NATO commitments, yet nobody's telling us what the NATO commitments are. So it's a bit of a question mark. So I think what's going to happen, regardless of how many people they get in on the 1st of January, they're going to implement mandatory military service. Also, from last night's live stream, we were talking about how NATO is not ready to fight this war. They're not training for the right stuff. They're training for stuff that was like 10 years ago. And like we've just seen on the, like we've just seen on the chat, people can have conversations with arms producers 10 years ago. That's obsolete now. I would say stuff that was happening 12 months ago is obsolete. Also, we've just looked at articles from the United Kingdom whereby Keir Starmer is telling Britons that they must prepare. Obviously, they've got no plan, and Britain are saying this at the moment, guys. Okay, they have got no plans for conscription. But if the threat changes, we will change our stance. And look, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of don't trust the government when they tell me the sky is blue. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down now because I've just looked at the time. You guys have been fantastic. There's quite a lot of new people on here commenting, guys. If you've not done so already, can you like, comment, subscribe, and please consider becoming a member because that really helps me out as well. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you guys. I'm going to bid you good morning. Have a great Sunday, and I'll be back on later today, and I will be back on at 8. I'll see you guys later.